We believe there's a changed risk landscape that will require significant leadership and an integrated stakeholder solution.
This year has had a particular impact around the changing risk landscape, and our overall view is a far more intense focus on the issue of risk, on the issue of predictable risk or scenario risk analysis, and there's no doubt that the mining companies are starting to look at that. And I think certainly what will happen is the attributes, the skills of your general sort of risk manager or chief risk officer at the mines is going to have to increase over the next few years, and a lot closer interaction between those CROs and the CEOs in understanding the broader risk landscape. The challenge the mining companies are to integrate their risk and performance management. I think there's no way, you're seeing it working in the financial services industry. It needs to now start working as well in the mining industry, that you get performance measured to the risk that the mining companies are taking, and also will help them be more predictive in the kind of risks that they might face. What you're seeing in financial services companies is, particularly at chief risk officer level, they're very heightened executive level, often sitting at sort of executive management level, attending key strategic discussions of executive management and really understanding what the landscape is from a strategy perspective. I think in mining companies, a lot of that is sort of delegated down into the various mining operations.
Physical risks versus general business risk.
So in order to narrow that gap, what we're suggesting then is to take heed of what financial service houses have done in creating that view. I think also the financial service companies are fairly mature in what they call the combined assurance model. And that is getting assurance, not only understanding the risk landscape, but getting assurance across that risk landscape from qualified insurance providers that then integrate their thinking around the risk assessment process. So you get to better understand what risk is through a range of additional inputs into that risk landscape.
I mean, would they foresee Marikana or something like that?
Well, look, I mean, there's talk, often, a black swan event, for example, is something like a tsunami. Marikana is something that due to social and other impacts, should effectively have, not necessarily the nature of what happened, but certainly the impact of that particular risk should have been on somebody's radar screen.
And it might have been, but it might have been underestimated. It might have been.
Yeah. And I think also just linked to that, I mentioned earlier on about the socio-economic issues. Is it the mining company's responsibility that you're creating communities around your mine just purely because of the fact that there's potential employment opportunity at that mine? A lot of that is resulting from the unrest of that community that isn't getting the job, let alone not getting the 12,000 a month. So that, when we spoke about the integrating that stakeholder view, it's getting closer to government, getting to understand those sort of things better. So what would that impact be? I'm not saying we're ignoring the potential of that impact, which I'm sure that is. But how do we work better with other stakeholders, communities, government, in better understanding that kind of risk? If you look at how the financial service companies do their scenario assessments and their scenario planning, particularly around risk on a predictive basis, one of those questions might have been asked in the right workshopping environment.
As you see the reporting landscape in the mining industry changing as well, more and more integrated reports come out now. More of the non-financial aspects are now subject to assurance by choice, in many cases, by many of the mining companies. And I think there's just a general awareness across a much wider risk spectrum, non-financial risks, that seems to be on the radar screen. So I think it's tracking in the right direction. Did all the stakeholders, government, labour, the community, and the company sit around the table and say, guys, this is waiting to explode. So what are we doing about it? Or was it dealt with in isolation, and perhaps as a result of that, it boiled over, with the tragic results for those individuals, for the company, for the community, and for the country at large.